Nerd Bourbon Film and TV Addiction Hotline. Is everything okay?
Hi, thank you so much for answering. It's been such a long time since I've rewatched one of my favorite movies or TV shows, but today I relapsed.
Hello and welcome to Nerd Bourbon Relapse, the podcast series where we revisit the series that we love. It's been a minute, Todd.
It's been probably a year at this point.
It's been
1 year since we've done this shit.
Anytime I hear the words "it's been," that's just my default state. So I do apologize for that. Todd, we're returning to Nerd Bourbon Relapse. We're doing a sideshow that is not shots. Isn't this exciting?
Yeah.
Back in the saddle. Feels pretty good. I'm excited.
I talked about this off recording. If we plan it, we actually plan on doing it, I can get over the mental hurdle and just fucking do it.
See, that's what I need to start. I need to start scheduling you recording times like it's a job.
I'm telling you, that would be the way to do it.
Todd, I need you clocked in at this time.
No, dude, you joke, but I'm dead serious. That would probably help.
All right. Well, regardless, we're starting a new Relapse series. This one is not going to be a fucking, 9-episode saga.
Another check for daddy.
Another check for daddy. So we can actually get through this one a little bit quicker, a little bit easier. And to be honest, I think this is going to be a fun one, man. The Chris Nolan Batman trilogy, the Dark Knight trilogy, as it were. Starting, of course, with Batman Begins. We just got done watching it mere moments ago. How long has it been? First of all, how long has it been for you since you've watched this movie last?
I'd say at least 4 years.
You've seen it more recently than even me, because
I have. I've definitely. So like these movies, I tend to rewatch every couple years. This is probably the longest I've gone without rewatching it.
I'll tell you the exact day that I last watched this movie. It was July 20th, 2012.
Shit.
And that's because the last time I saw this movie, my buddy Provost and I were doing a marathon. Our theater, leading up to the release of The Dark Knight Rises, was doing a marathon of like the previous two movies. You can just watch them all in like one sitting.
So you just sat there, watched all three of them. How long were you? Like fucking 9 hours?
Yeah, I mean, there were like intermissions, you would have like an hour between each showing or whatever.
I can't imagine the stench of that.
Oh, God. It wasn't that bad. There wasn't that many people that were actually doing it. It was actually kind of nice because, by the time credits rolled on Dark Knight and you're gearing up to watch Dark Knight Rises, you've already got your seat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So, like, you didn't have to fight for, like, a good seat. You're already kind of situated. It was just a matter of, like, going to the bathroom real quick, refilling your popcorn, whatever. Mm-hmm. But that was a great experience. I loved that experience. But that was the last time I've seen Batman Begins. So,
dude, didn't they do a fucking marathon of all like the fucking Marvel movies?
Oh yeah,
at some places. Dude, that sounds like hell,
bro. That's like you're talking about. I think total that's like 19 hours.
Yeah, it's almost a full fucking day.
It's rough,
like shit. That's the one I don't want to imagine the stench.
That's next level. Yeah, no way. Couldn't do that. But this one, these movies are just fun watches too, man. They fly by. You know what I mean? Even this one, I didn't realize this movie was as long as it is until we started watching it today.
Yeah, I looked at the time. I was like, shit, what the fuck?
The movie's like 2.5 hours long. Shit.
It's like, damn.
There's a lot of stuff. I think both of us kind of came away from this rewatch here, kind of like just being more impressed than ever with this movie, which is obviously sort of the point of Relapse, is to go back and revisit with fresh eyes and sort of get a new perspective on the movie. What are your thoughts what are some raw thoughts coming away from this?
I think I said it as we were watching it, is I think this is up there, if it's not the best, it is one of the best origin movies for a superhero.
Yeah, it's in the conversation for sure.
Yeah,
I think you could push back. I think you could push back with Iron Man 1 a little bit.
Yeah, come on. Yeah, like I say, it's up there. Top
but it
5.
is up there. Yeah, it's in the conversation for sure. The thing that I want to drive home though is like I was just sitting here as we're watching it, and it was just making memories like rush back. I'll never forget seeing this movie in the theater for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
and just like it's so hard to put yourself back in that place where Batman was not always this good. You know what I mean? Like, the Batman movies have always been pretty solid or whatever, but they were never like this before. Like, just taken completely seriously, like, shot and acted, like, with an ensemble cast and, like,
Bro,
well written.
It's just fucking crazy to me this movie came out in 2005.
2005, 15 years ago now.
Fucking hell.
I mean, that's nuts to me. Yeah, I do. I remember sitting in the theater and watching it, just being like, "Holy shit!" This Batman is fucking. This Batman fucks. You know what I mean? Like, this is like, this is like so different from anything else.
Dude, I can't believe I was fucking 11 when this movie came out.
That's a long time ago, man. Yeah,
Fuck.
I just this movie just totally blew me away, and coming back and watching it all this time later, like I said, it's been a solid going on 8 years since I've
Yeah.
seen the movie last. And I'm just so impressed with like the little things, watching it kind of fresh. I'm impressed with, the whole time watching it, I was trying to put myself back in that headspace, going back to 2005. Like, I'm just like, God damn, like all these actors just turning in these amazing performances, a really smart script.
The other thing you commented on when we were watching is just the way the movie was shot, like the actual cinematography of it,
Yeah.
which I definitely agree with. Like, that shit is top notch.
Because that's the thing about you see these Tim Burton Batman movies, and maybe we'll even that'd be a fun relapse one day.
Oh,
But,
Lord.
You go back and you watch those, and the way those are shot, it's so like the visual style of those movies are obviously like some of the best parts of them, but it does kind of look like a cartoon a little bit, to the point where like when you go to Batman the Animated Series, they were literally like, we want a cartoon that looks like these movies. That was like the job of that show. So, but this just looks completely like you fucking believe that Batman is like a real thing. They shot it in a real studio. They shot it in Chicago. I made the joke. I was
an
like,
extra layer of shit.
yeah, I made the joke. I was like, yeah, they wanted Gotham to look like a shithole, so they shot it in Chicago.
And I'm like, bro, Chicago ain't that bad.
It's not that bad. It's not as bad as there's some parts where we're just like, wow, they really fucking.
There's
went
just
in.
an extra layer of just pure shit.
You just
Like,
imagine the set designers like fucking going ham with the graffiti and.
Dude, again, I've seen shit like that, but nowhere near that level. Where
It's all over the chairs on the fucking monorail and shit like that. It's like, wait,
the
what?
wall was like almost a fucking mural
Yeah.
of graffiti. That's like, come on,
Set
guys.
designers just came in with like buckets of diarrhea and just threw it all over the wall. It's a little much. It doesn't look quite that bad, but But it was funny though, because us both being Chicago boys, like we like looked at it a little bit. There were some recognizably Chicago parts.
Oh, dude, whenever they're downtown, downtown is, come on. As much as I hate downtown, it's recognizable as all hell to me.
And it captures, like I was telling you, the orangey glow of the street lights and the.
You know what's funny is I'm not liking the fact is so actually right outside my house, the street light, they actually got some new lights. And it's like the white light, and it bothered me.
Oh, I don't like that.
Dude, I walked out, I'm like, it's bright as fuck. I'm like, I was like, what is this? Garbage.
I don't like that. When I think of Chicago, that's weirdly enough, that's such an important part of Chicago's just like visual to me in my head.
Yeah, that old, like almost yellow orange light.
Old timey orangey lighting that it's almost comforting. Like when you're driving at night.
No, dude, it's starting to get brighter. We're starting to get like the white lights right now.
Hate that.
Yeah, I'm not a fan, but there's actually some parts of the city that I'm like kind of down for it.
Well, there's some parts where it's like, okay, it's a little too dark or whatever. I get that, but overall, I don't leave it as
Don't
it
mess
is.
don't mess with the aesthetic.
Don't mess with that aesthetic. Speaking of the aesthetic of it, I was reading up about the sort of like the actual like set design and the influences that went into this movie. Like when Chris Nolan was like sitting down trying to think about the visual identity of this movie and sort of the vibe they're going for, actually his big influence was Blade Runner.
Oh.
That was the number one influence on this.
Now, I can actually see that with
Right.
the way the Narrows looks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like I can definitely see that with the way the Narrows is set up.
You get a few shots with the neon signs and stuff, and it does look a little Blade Runner-esque. Even with some of the verticality of some of the sets,
Mm-hmm.
it does look a little Blade Runner-ish. And I will say that's actually, I was reading about that. That was one of the when he first got the crew together, they did like a private screening of Blade Runner, and he was like, "We're gonna do this with Batman." Basically.
Which cut? No, I'm just playing.
But no, it was. Man, I was really impressed with this. I was impressed with the visuals. I was impressed with the script. Again, the way that the script sort of calls back every little thing and ties everything together and makes things make sense. Like, I feel like a big task. I feel like the number one task that this movie had was to make Batman believable.
Oh, yeah.
And that's exactly what they managed to do here, I feel like.
I think the most unbelievable thing in that movie is that bat scene.
Yeah.
With the
I can agree
fucking
with
frequency thing.
And there's a reason we never see it again.
Again, I'm not going to deny the fact I enjoy that scene for what it is, but
Yeah. But it's kind of cool to see how they really did think of the little things, where there's that scene where like they're having a breakdown, like how they're going to order from like the various pieces of the bat suit from different distributors and like little tiny questions they didn't even necessarily need to answer, but they chose to anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, these are just kind of scattered thoughts. I apologize about the lack of structure here, but I'm just sort of thinking of things.
Relapse has always been a pretty free form show. It's also been a while since we've done it. So
well, it's also the vibe with Relapse is definitely just sort of like when you're walking out of a movie theater and you're standing around talking about
just,
it.
You're
right?
sitting there like an asshole, like just discussing what you just watched.
Yeah, it's so. I want to talk about the performances, namely Liam Neeson.
Oh my fucking god!
So good in this movie.
Who do you think could have been casted as Roz?
Nobody would have been better. I'll tell you that.
That's true. Yeah.
He's just perfect. Like he just totally captures that vibe, and I love the way that they. Again, I think it was like 20 minutes into the movie. I kind of stopped for a second. I was like, think about what they have accomplished here. 20 minutes into this movie, essentially, they're like, all right, we've got. They say Roz in this, but I'm sort of used to pronouncing it as Raish. Yeah. They've got Ra's al Ghul set up. They've got the League of Shadows set up. We've got the origin story out of the way. Essentially, the sort of Joe Chill, shooting the parents down in Crime Alley. We got that out of the way. We've got set up for like Commissioner Gordon and Rachel, and we've got set up for like the Falcone, like crime syndicate and stuff like that.
Yep.
We're starting to see like the early seeds of Scarecrow being planted.
Mm-hmm. See, most of the time in movies, I'm not a fan of flashbacks, but I think Batman Begins handles it like perfectly.
Yes, this movie handles flashbacks really well because it doesn't overreach. Mm-hmm. It's not going like too ham with the flashbacks, and the stuff that we're seeing in the flashbacks, they're important scenes, and they all, again, this movie is really good. This script is really good about paying off everything that it sets up.
Mm-hmm.
It sets up stuff, and I'd have to watch it again to really sit and think about it, but I have to imagine that just about everything that it brings up, it comes back to later.
Yep.
To the point where there's that scene, like we mentioned, like when we first kind of get introduced to what will eventually become the Batcave underneath Wayne Manor.
Yeah.
And Alfred's like, oh, like, the Waynes used to like help like free slaves like come through here back in the Underground Railroad and shit like that.
It's got the
and
elevator
that's brought
leading
back
up
up.
to the elevator up to the main house.
Right. Like that's brought back up later. It's like little shit like that. And there's some, kind of like dialogue callbacks that are like that maybe are a little
the one-liners.
The one-liners are real. I think I even mentioned to you, I was like, I feel like David S. Goyer's just got a boner for this shit.
Well, it's like every single thing, and you kind of know it's like, all right, that's probably going to come back. It's like when he first jumps on the ship, to like just basically leave his life as Bruce Wayne in the beginning of the movie. It's like, He's like, that's a nice coat.
Right. And later on, he's like, nice coat.
And it's the funniest thing to me is like that. And during that scene, it's like, I guess we just assume he had the fucking like grappling hook attached to his belt as he just ascends.
Oh,
It's
yeah, because he's like, nice coat. And then he fucking just ascends straight up into the air on a wire. All right.
Oh, shit.
Looked a little goofy, but whatever. we'll let it slide. But I mean, just like, yeah, Liam Neeson, like, perfectly cast, so good. You talk about, I mentioned earlier, this is an ensemble cast. And I don't understand how they assembled this cast. That's what I want to know. How the fuck? Christopher Nolan at this point in his career is a relative nobody.
Yeah, this is his fourth. Like, I think you actually ended up looking up. It's his fourth movie.
It's his fourth movie, but this was by far his most prolific. Like, he had done like Memento and Insomnia and stuff like that before, but those were very kind of indie films a little bit, and they were good and everything. But like, it's not like he had made a name for himself yet. And he managed to get like Michael Caine and Morgan Freeman, and it's just like, shit, man. Like, this cast is so good. Yeah, I was like Michael Caine is my Alfred.
Oh, that's, come on, real shit.
Although, shout out to the guy from the Tim Burton movies. I did like him. I don't know. I don't remember his name, but I do like that guy. I do. I don't know that there's ever been a bad on-screen Alfred. Honestly. Because we got him, we got Michael Caine, we had Jeremy Irons, who was great. Andy Serkis is up next to Bat. Alfred's been portrayed fairly well on screen thus far.
And then you also have that dude from Gotham, which is
right, who plays. He's sort of a more young, like, brutish kind of Alfred, right?
Yeah, he's kind of like, yeah. I don't mind him from everything I've seen.
If you're talking about TV, yeah, you could go back to the old school, like the '66 show and stuff like that. But in terms of movies, Alfred's been pretty solidly cast throughout the year. So no, but I loved Cillian Murphy in the movie playing Scarecrow. Because you almost forget that, like, they touch on so much shit in this movie. And these are not like, you would think that when this movie is being pitched to Warner Brothers, right? Like, this does not seem like an obvious success. Like, hey, we're going to do Batman like totally realistic and straight-faced. We're going to introduce fairly obscure characters to the common viewer. Mm-hmm. Like, my mom doesn't know who fucking Ra's al Ghul is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She knows who the Joker is. That's why when Tim Burton comes around in '89, the first villain he touches on is the Joker. Because it makes sense.
Makes sense, but it's also a missed opportunity to, like, save that, you know?
I love that they saved that. I love that we get that moment at the end of this movie where we have that tease.
Well, again, this was building, like building this, like, this world,
right?
You know, don't just bring the Joker in. The Joker came after the Batman became somewhat established.
He was established. His theatricality
probably caught his attention.
Right. Well, I remember reading a quote as I was looking into some of these behind-the-scenes details of the production of these, that when Goyer and Nolan were kind of building this movie out together, they're like, we view Batman as a romantic character.
Mm.
We view Batman, they use that word romantic a little bit. And there's always been that sort of, when you talk about the character of the Joker, he's kind of a romantic character too. And it's even like, obviously this is not the Dark Knight episode, but like when we get to the Dark Knight, like he's like, you complete me and shit like that.
Well,
you know?
they've always they touched on that shit with Arkham Origins, the game.
Yeah.
Where he's like sitting there talking to like fucking Harley essentially, and like she thinks he's talking about her and shit.
And
he's just talking about Batman.
He's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was talking to you about this as we were watching this movie, where I was like, I think in many ways, Batman Begins has got the strongest plot of the entire trilogy. when you think about like how impressive it is, like it's an origin story, but it's also its own self-contained story. And the plot, like the villainous plot, is not like ill-conceived. Like you understand why they're doing it. Like their plan is actually pretty good in a way. You know, it's and it's not some half-baked thing that is just like full of holes and shit like that. It's intimately tied to Batman's past and stuff like that, which I think is important. And it's just I think it's a really strong script, a really strong story, and I that ultimately that has to be why so much of this talent flocked to it, because it was just a good fucking story. To me, I look at this and I'm like, this is way better than. Don't get me wrong, I love The Dark Knight. I even love Dark Knight Rises in its own way. It's the weakest of the three, but I still love that movie. Oh shit,
Dark Knight Rises is easily the weakest. I am looking forward to watching the next two just to see how I feel about it, coming into a different perspective now that I'm like a little older and shit.
Totally.
But God, I definitely like once we finish watching Begins, I'm like, I don't remember loving it this much.
Yeah, it's just really, really strong. Like they just kind of did everything right with this. This was just kind of a perfect first movie. And again, I don't know that the plot of either of the next two were ever quite as strong as this one is. It just, I was really kind of floored by it, by just how good it was. And by the way, we kind of stopped and talked about this a lot as we were watching it. That Hans Zimmer score.
Oh my God.
It fucks, man. It's so good.
That right there is the best. That's the only word that you could have used for it. It fucks.
It's so good. Like, and I love that they don't just immediately hit you with that main theme.
No, the crescendo.
Yeah, the crescendo with the brass and everything. They don't immediately hit that. They wait. They build up to it slowly over the course of the movie.
It's the slow burn, the slow build, and then it finally hits towards the like the actual like final like the climax of the movie and shit.
So
like,
good.
Fuck.
Loved it. I just it's really rare to see something come out of the gate the way that Batman Begins did, and just is immediately like formed this well, and immediately like sets up everything this well, and puts as many eggs in this basket, and touches on even classic, Batman influences where it touches on stuff like Year One, and like we get to see like Arkham Asylum, and we get these characters, and it's really fucking cool.
I think, again, there's little like fucking like references like if you know like the comics and like the like side like more, I'm not gonna say obscure, but like like Zaz and shit, like oh, that's cool.
Yeah, like Zaz is kind of kind of a C tier character, and he's cool. Like he's kind of in there, and there's a lot of like little references and nods like that. And I remember I was reading about, like I said, about some of this production, and there are little tiny differences that they made, and I think they made them smartly. Where in the comics, so one of the major things we see in the flashback is of course the opera house scene, and they tied bats intimately into the backstory of this Bruce Wayne, right? Where them being his fear is a major part of the plot and a major part of the reason why he chooses to become Batman.
Yeah.
Down to them working it into the opera itself. Where they leave because he's scared and everything of the bat actors and stuff like that. Whereas traditionally in the comics, they're watching like Zorro. That's traditionally how it is, but they sort of threw that out a little bit because they're like, okay, we want this to all tie together. They were so focused on tying it. It's a very tight script. I really like the script a lot. I was very impressed with that watching this movie.
I think we commented on like I think we both enjoyed the relationship between Thomas Wayne and Bruce in this one.
That's great shit.
Yeah.
I don't know in other Batman fiction, I don't know that we really get a lot of that.
It's like it's like what we get is fantastic in this movie. Just like you see that genuine love and care, and like even like when they leave the opera house, it's like, oh no, it was me.
Yeah. He kind of like took that. He kind of took that. It's a little dad moment, right, where he kind of gives Bruce like a wink, and he's like, oh no, like fuck opera anyway, right? Basically, he kind of gives Bruce that little wink and everything. It's a total dad moment that you remember when you're a kid, you know. And they add the movie's full of stuff like that. It was nice to get to see Bruce have an actual relationship with his father.
They really have that whole rise thing, even from the first movie, huh?
Yeah. That's kind of
I actually forgot him.
That's kind of the whole theme of the trilogy, I guess, really. Why do we fall, right?
Yep.
I love that stuff, man. That all just totally works for me. I think there's a little bit of it that could be seen as like cheesy.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with a little cheese. Yeah.
No. Like I said, David S. Goyer's got that boner for the one-liners and stuff, and sometimes I'm like, okay, that would have worked a little bit better on the comic page. But
there was a specific moment that you definitely said that. I'm trying to remember when it was.
It was something that Falcone said. I don't remember exactly. Yeah, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was something that Falcone said. I was like, okay, that would have looked better on the page than on screen. But otherwise, though, I just think that they did a really good job. Really smart script, really great cast, great score. I don't have too many complaints with this movie, honestly.
No, not at all.
And it was so nice to revisit. I just had like a blast revisiting it. Man, I love that scene. The intro of the movie, all the League of Shadows stuff.
Oh, dude, fucking great.
So good. So good. I love that.
I was joking with with Ken Watanabe's like the decoy, essentially. Like he's sitting there talking. I'm like, this man just speaking gibberish.
Well, when you realize that like you made that comment like oh, like he probably killed that man in the village where after he saves Ra's al Ghul. And I'm like, dude, he was probably in on it.
Yeah.
The entire village is probably a facade.
Well, that's the whole thing. It's all a fucking facade.
And when you get that moment too, they this is another really smart thing. Again, going back to, I feel like I'm a broken record. Going back to how smart the script is, when he reappears at Bruce's birthday party, and he's like, "Or is Ra's al Ghul immortal?" You know, or whatever, and and he talks about the way that they have tried to take down Gotham over the years.
Yes.
And you get that sense in the back of your mind. You're like, well, wait, is this motherfucker immortal? Like, are they low key talking about the Lazarus Pit like he has been trying over centuries to take down Gotham? And they tie that into the Wayne family and stuff too, and that's
they
all.
Tied in the reason that even that Gotham's like limped on, it was because of his parents and shit.
That's just that's super clever. Super clever the way they do that stuff. And then, by the way, you gotta shout out that he he has that moment where Bruce is like, these people didn't do it. Your quarrel's with me, not with them. Like let them leave. And he's like, you're welcome to explain to them the situation.
And then he pulls off into the good old drunken act.
The drunken act where he just like starts talking shit. Everybody's just drinking all my booze.
It was so good. You're a bunch of phonies. No.
You're all just a bunch of phonies. He's like, so everybody just please leave me in peace.
Stop smiling. This isn't a joke.
Stop smiling. It's not a joke. Just go. So, I'm like, man, that must have been so like fucking cathartic to shoot. That's just what you want to say at every party.
Yeah, for real. And just a little later, I still love that scene. Is just when like the actual like wooden beam is on him, and like fucking Alfred's like, what's the point of all these bloody push-ups?
He can't even lift a bloody log.
Dude, his face looking at Alfred's like, what pitch?
Make for a good reaction.
It was always a good reaction. I think I used to see it back in the day. Oh man. Oh, I think we talked about that. I actually wholeheartedly agree with you. Is wishing that they actually didn't say Batman until the Arkham Asylum scene.
Right. They first dropped the word Batman. And again, this is probably on the checklist of things that WB wanted to see, is like, there's that moment where he's taking down the Falcone thugs, like at the pier. And,
again, great scene. That is a great scene. It plays like a fucking horror movie. Love it.
Oh, yeah. they shot it like that. The music plays into that, and he's who the hell are you? And I'm Batman, you know.
But and then you said it during the Arkham scene where it's like it's fucking Scarecrow. He's like, it's the Batman. I'm like, oh yeah. You're like, that's where they should have did it. I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah, he's been kind of like looking around crazy, and he's like, he pulls his Scarecrow mask off, and Crane's just like, the Batman, you know, and
that would have been, when you said it, I'm like, yeah, damn, that actually would have been perfect.
That would have been the good place to, because again, there's something about making that feel organic that's really hard to do. It's hard to incorporate those things, those like touchstones, making them feel organic and not making them feel like a checklist item.
Yeah.
And that would have been a really good way to do it. But yeah, again, there's small missteps here and there.
Everybody's hindsight's 2020. No.
Yeah, you know. And like I said, I'm sure having the I'm Batman line is just very
again, I can't ever hate that line.
You gotta have that worked in there somewhere, I suppose.
It's like what is that whole shit? You remember in like Arkham Knight where he's like sitting there like I'm vengeance, all that shit like during that one at the end of the game.
Right.
Fucking love that shit.
That's like, sometimes you like being pandered to. You know what I mean?
I'm sitting there like my dick got a little hard during that scene. I was like.
It's like, so sometimes, you're pandering to me, and I know you're pandering. It's like, it's kind of like in The Matrix when he's sitting there eating the steak. He's like, I know that the Matrix is making me think this steak is juicy and delicious, but I don't care. Ignorance is bliss. I'm like, I know you're pandering to me. I don't give a shit.
Oh man,
I kind of like it. But no, I had a great time watching this, man. I am really excited to watch the other two. Guess I'm just gonna have to pencil you in.
Yeah, basically. I am looking forward to, like, once we get through the next two, to actually just look at this trilogy as a whole and seeing where they stack up in my mind.
See where they fall, rank them. Yeah.
It'd be funny if my shit, like, I think before we rewatch this, I'd probably go 2, 1, 3.
Right.
But I wonder if, like, by the end of it, it's actually going to be in fucking order.
Yeah. It just got worse as the series went on for you. I think that's what, maybe this will be interesting to say this as we wrap up here before we get into The Dark Knight, is like, I really do think that this one does have the strongest plot. I really do think that this has got the strongest plot of the entire trilogy. Maybe I'll prove myself wrong. Maybe when we watch these other ones, I'll double back and say differently.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about this certainly a lot more when we get to the next movie, but I think that the reason The Dark Knight is so well regarded is so much of that is because of Heath Ledger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we're obviously going to cover that a lot more when we get to the next movie, so I don't want to spoil that conversation here. But that's pretty much all I think I have to say.
I mean, we can sit there and talk about like specific scenes all day, but I don't think there's a big need for it.
Yeah, no, I think we've pretty much touched on the main reasons why we love this movie so fucking much, and I can't wait to watch the next two. It's a great trilogy, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm glad we're doing Relapse again. So, anything else you want to add as we wrap up here?
I think that's about it, man.
Thanks for listening, folks. We'll catch you next time when we relapse into The Dark Knight. Bye.
See ya.